Unknown tribes arrived in the same year for our sins. Only God knows who they are and where they come from. The armored warriors grew tired as they pursued the odd forces that originally fought them a week ago. Refugees from the steppe had been the first to warn of the invasion, pleading with the squabbling princes of the Kievan Rus to unite their armies against a large, godless horde. The Rus now get sight of the enemy on the banks of the Kalka River, holding aloft their magnificent banners. These Mongols had just crushed the magnificent Islamic Khwarazmian Empire into a heap of flaming bodies and chased its pitiful king into the Caspian Sea. They've gone north, led by leaders Subutai and Jebi, to scout and fight in uncharted territory. Danilo, a young Kievan Rus prince, leads his warriors across the river. Danilo pushes through and kills numerous Mongols in a wild charge through clouds of arrows. One of his enemies pierces his chest and allies ride to Danilo's rescue, but Mongol horse archers outflank them. The Mongols pursued the tired Russians into scattered retreats, slaughtering thousands. The Mongols ride back east over silver fields of Rus corpses, and nothing more is heard from them. Danilo and the other surviving princes must reclaim their thrones. Their presence in these far-flung European regions has been revealed, not to nameless wild tribes, but to the world's most powerful man. The Mongols are now on their way back to Genghis Khan's court. The Kievan Rus, which was created in the 9th century, once stood powerful and united at Europe's eastern frontier. As the years passed, powerful principalities developed inside its borders. Clans and aristocracy feuded and trade routes dried up. The power of the Kievan Rus was thus divided and fractured among minor rulers who were just as likely to raise an army against one another as against the knights and hordes beyond their borders. Some attempted with considerable difficulty to restore the federation to its former splendor. Roman the Great consolidated various regions and became the master of all Western Rus, governing mostly in Ukraine, but he was killed in combat. Danilo, his son, claims the territory ruled by his father, but only rules a section of it in the western region of halych-volhynia. Terror reaches the eastern regions of the Kievan Rus 14 years after the Battle of the Kalka in 1237. The Mongol horde arrives and demands the surrender of Ryazan. The villagers resist and actively repel the first Mongol attacks, but they are eventually overwhelmed. The Ryazan prince perishes along with his city, and it's later stated that no one remained to moan and cry. Even though Genghis Khan died in 1227, his son Ogedai replaced him and commanded the conquests of the Kievan Rus. The invasion is led by Genghis Batu's grandson, who is accompanied by the empire's finest princes and generals, including the fearsome subutai. In a western drive, they decimated the former principalities, slaughtering inhabitants before riding south to Crimea. In 1239, they ride beneath an ashen sky. Beyond the route, domes rise, pointed like closed flowers capped by plain crosses, while below the peasants stir in their creaking hovels and carts and livestock plod through the streets. The Khan, taken aback by the distant magnificence of Kiev, professes his desire to spare the city if its inhabitants yield without a struggle. The Khan leads his Mongols away to campaign or rest elsewhere, while the Grand Prince of Kyiv, Mikhail of Chernigov, rejects his request and leaves. A year has passed. Danilo will appoint his vassal Dmitro to command the city, and the rivers will freeze, and the horde will arrive at Kiev's gates. Batu Khan set up camp outside the city as his forces besieged it, and the immense din generated by his screaming carts, innumerable bleeding camels, and neighing herds of horses drowned out everything, and the region of Rus became overrun with soldiers. Chinese engineers advanced siege weapons, splintering Kiev's timber walls. Stones rained down from the heavens, burying towers, homes, and people. The invaders penetrated the fortifications after a few days. Kievans raced to ramparts to confront them, killing the first invaders. The Mongols catch up to them and ride rampant through the blazing streets. Civilians retreat to the tidal church. They cloister around a glowing altar behind their desperate barricades, and with the Mongols at the door, the frenzied Kievans rush onto the straining balconies, and the church falls, crushing hundreds within. The last remnants of the Kievan Rus have collapsed, exposing the fields to the west. The Mongols will advance into Central Europe under the command of Batu and Subutai. Poles, Hungarians, Germans, and Knights Templars will ride out to oppose them, but will be scattered in the melee. Meanwhile, Prince Danilo learns that his wife and children had survived the Mongol invasion and fled to Poland. In an emotional reunion, he finds them by the Polka River and advises them that it's not safe for them to stay there. he later leaves to view his own destroyed towns. Danilo came to Berestia with his brother, but he couldn't go out into the field because of the stench from the innumerable decaying dead. There was not a single person alive in Volodymyr, and the Church of the Blessed Virgin, like other churches, was full of corpses. The Mongol conquest did not put a stop to regional strife. Danilo and other princes maintain alliances and feuds in the borderlands, clashing with Poles and Lithuanians, but the Mongols keep a close eye on those who challenge their rule. To reign as a vassal of the Mongols, vanquished princes and governors must seek Batu Khan to affirm their rulership in the previous territory, and they must pay tribute to the Khan in the form of taxes, soldiers, and other laborers, and subscribing to our channel for more of this awesome content. Mikhail of Chernigov visits Batu Khan's courts in 1246, bowing in reverence to the conqueror, but refusing Batu's demand to bow before Mongol symbols and commemorate the dead Genghis Khan. "We bow to you and pay you honor, but we will not worship in your ancestors' faith. We will not obey your order, which is blasphemy in God's eyes." Batu becomes enraged and orders Mikhail and his grandson to be stabbed to death. Mikhail of Chernigov is martyred and eventually becomes a saint. Prince Danilo, who has long been pursued by the soldiers of Batu Khan, is also summoned. Before answering the call, he seeks the solemn wisdom and prayer of monks. Batu and Danilo negotiate a military prisoner exchange, and Batu offers Danilo a cup of mare's milk. Danilo said he hadn't tasted it yet but would drink it if Batu wanted, to which Batu answered that Danilo was already one of them, a Mongol, and should therefore drink their beverage. Danilo, on the other hand, is exclusively interested in undermining the Mongols. In the coming years, he will establish strong relations with the kingdoms of Poland and Hungary, as well as the assistance of Western allies. He begs Pope Vincent IV to restore Roman authority to his domains and launch a crusade against the Mongols. Danilo, on the other hand, merely obtains the papal gift of a title and the crown of King of Ruthenia. He and his sons, as well as his brother, will form an army to retake their territories. Over the winter of 1254, they travel from town to town, sparing civilians but smashing the yoke of Mongol tyranny wherever they go. Danilo's valiant campaign has begun to drive away Mongol sympathizers among the Rus, inciting the rage of the Mongol horde. In 1257, Mongol general Khwarazmian gathers an army sworn to quell this insurgency and moved to seize Volodymyr. The residents of the city have long sought vengeance for the deaths of their relatives, those that the Mongols left decaying in consecrated church halls. The warriors of Vladimir charge out of the gates, shields in hand, in a horseless onslaught. They thrust their spears through their opponents and murder them with their swords on the amber fields. The Mongols disperse and flee. King Danilo's army goes out to hunt down more Mongols, while Khwarazmian decides to punish the helpless city of Luk. He arrives at a freezing, raging river. The people of Luk rush out and destroy the bridge in front of them, forcing Khwarazmian to abandon the siege and retreat to the steppe with his forces. While the victorious King Danilo plans to retake Kyiv, the Mongols return in bigger numbers under more experienced leadership, promising ultimate annihilation if the city does not capitulate. Danilo's defenses are destroyed by the Mongols. Danilo seeks refuge and Vasilko is obliged to accept their terms. Although the military fight against the Mongols is over, King Danilo will return, and through time he will rebuild and extend beyond the areas that his father previously ruled. Despite being vassals of the Mongol Empire, King Danilo and his subjects in Ukraine, Hungary, Poland, and elsewhere maintained a robust measure of freedom under Mongol control. Danilo dies in 1264, yet his uncontrollable defiance lives on. The Mongols anticipated the immense difficulty of capturing and holding these regions, since Ogadai Khan had been informed by his brother Chagatai that there, at the end of the globe, they are hard people, who when they grow furious would rather die by their swords. Thank you for watching today's video, and if you did enjoy it, subscribe and watch this video to learn about other real-life horrors committed by ancient emperors.